the deceptive glow of gold. The very foundations of trust, once thought unbreakable, can crumble into dust, leaving behind a landscape of betrayal. What if everything you believed, every tender whisper and shared dream, was nothing more than an elaborate act, meticulously performed by the person closest to you? What if the architect of your downfall wasn't a stranger, but a confidant, a friend, or even your spouse? This is the chilling reality that descended upon Aaron Vance, a man whose steadfast loyalty became his greatest vulnerability, turning his once idyllic life into a meticulously planned trap. Aaron just trusted too much. It was a vulnerability that now, in retrospect, seemed almost painfully naive. They craved his absence. They coveted his hard-earned money. Very well, then. Let the games begin. Let's see who ultimately prevails in this intricate dance of deception. The package materialized on a sun-drenched Tuesday morning, under a California sky that painted everything in hues of golden warmth, even the insidious lies it contained. Aaron Vance stood rooted in his driveway, the sturdy work boots he wore still bearing the stubborn, caked-on mud from the previous day's labor. His gaze was fixed, unwavering, on the unassuming manila envelope, conspicuously devoid of any return address. Inside, nestled amongst the stark white paper, were 3 devastating photographs and a single, chilling directive. Check the attic. That's where the truth lives. The first image depicted his wife, Clara Hawthorne, in an intimate embrace, her lips pressed against another man's in the familiar confines of their own garage. The second, a close-up, revealed the same man's hands resting possessively on her waist. The third captured them in a shared moment of unrestrained laughter, their expressions mirroring co-conspirators reveling in a perfectly executed secret. The man was Julian Thorne, Aaron's closest friend since their high school days, the very individual who had, ironically, helped them navigate the complexities of purchasing this house a mere 3 years prior. Aaron's hands remained steady. They always did. A dozen years serving in the armed forces had meticulously purged any such betrayals of composure from his system. Yet, an icy sensation began to crystallize within his chest, a palpable chill akin to ice forming over placid, still water. "Honey," Clara's melodic voice drifted from the kitchen window, a seemingly innocent inquiry that now felt laced with an insidious undertone. "Everything all right out there? Just work stuff?" He called back, his voice surprisingly level, a testament to years of disciplined control. He deftly slid the damning photographs into the inner pocket of his jacket. The normalcy of his own voice, given the seismic shift within him, struck him as oddly disconcerting. He walked inside, where Clara stood by the sleek marble countertop, leisurely sipping coffee from her cherished mug, the one proudly declaring world's best wife, a thoughtful gift from him last Christmas. She was dressed in comfortable yoga pants and an oversized, soft sweater, her hair gathered loosely in that signature messy bun that once possessed the power to make his heart momentarily skip a beat. Now, he scrutinized her face with the cold, detached precision of an engineer examining blueprints, desperately seeking the nascent cracks within the foundation of their life. "How was the Willow Creek project?" she inquired, her eyes still fixated on her phone screen, scrolling through an endless stream of digital lives. "Long," he replied, his tone even. Ms. Beaumont's furnace was utterly beyond repair. Had to put in an order for specialized parts. He watched her absently double-tapping photos on her social media feed, images of other people's seemingly flawless, curated existences. "Oh," Julian texted, she announced, finally glancing up, a fleeting, almost imperceptible shift in her expression. "He wants to know if we're still on for dinner Friday." The ice in Aaron's chest, already a formidable block, seemed to expand, its tendrils reaching further. "What dinner?" he asked, maintaining a practiced casualness. "The one we discussed," she prodded, a hint of impatience in her voice, to celebrate his big promotion at the development company. She finally met his gaze directly, and for a fleeting, agonizing instant, something undeniably flickered across her features. Guilt, or was it fear? Perhaps a potent cocktail of both. "You remember, right? We talked about it just last week." They had not discussed anything last week. Aaron had been working brutal 16-hour shifts, relentlessly striving to amass enough savings for the elaborate pool she so desperately desired, a luxury that would cost $40,000, a sum they genuinely couldn't afford. "Sure," he said, the word emerging from his lips with an almost unnatural smoothness. "Dinner sounds absolutely grand." Clara smiled, and it was precisely the same radiant smile she had worn in their wedding photographs. The identical smile she had bestowed upon him when he had tenderly carried her across the threshold of this very house. And the same smile, he now realized with a fresh surge of agony, that was currently, in those damning photographs, directed at another man. "I need to grab some tools from the garage," he stated, pushing himself away from the table. "Okay," she replied, already returning her attention to her phone. "I'll probably head to yoga in a bit." Aaron walked through the kitchen, his gaze sweeping over the refrigerator door, a gallery of their shared past. Vacation snapshots, anniversary celebrations, silly selfies capturing moments when they both looked genuinely happy, young, and deeply in love. Each image, once a cherished memory, now felt like a stark piece of evidence in a crime he was only just beginning to comprehend. The garage air was a peculiar melange of motor oil and Clara's distinctive perfume. He positioned himself precisely where the photograph had been taken, a chilling tableau forming in his mind. His wife and his closest friend, their bodies pressed against his workbench, meticulously plotting whatever sinister scheme this entailed. His phone buzzed, a text message from his daughter, Sophie, away at college. "Dad, I tried calling Mom, but she didn't answer. Can you ask her about Thanksgiving break?" Aaron stared at the message, a fresh wave of realization washing over him. Sophie was 22, a child from his first marriage to Laura. Clara had always maintained a veneer of politeness towards her, but never genuine warmth, never a motherly affection. Now he wondered if that emotional distance had been a deliberate, calculated act. Another text from Sophie immediately followed. "Also, weird question, but did you know Mom was asking about your retirement account last month? She called the office where I work part-time and was asking questions about beneficiaries or something." The nascent ice in his chest, previously a mere block, rapidly solidified into an imposing glacier, cold and unyielding. Aaron ascended the ladder to the attic, meticulously following the anonymous tip. The space was oppressively cramped and thick with dust, filled with forgotten Christmas decorations and stacked boxes of old photographs, relics of a life that now felt utterly alien. But, wedged discreetly behind the humming water heater, encased in a protective plastic bag, he discovered precisely what the cryptic note had promised: a burner phone and a USB drive. He carefully pocketed both, his movements deliberate, and climbed back down, his mind already operating with the precise, multi-layered strategy he had employed during those long, desolate nights in Afghanistan, where survival necessitated thinking 3 moves ahead of the unseen enemy. Except, this time, the enemy was no longer a faceless insurgent. The enemy now shared his bed, offered him farewell kisses each morning, and had coaxed him into signing refinancing documents that, in his misguided trust, he had neglected to scrutinize carefully enough. That evening, Clara prepared his favorite dinner, a succulent pot roast accompanied by all the customary trimmings. She lit candles, their flickering flames casting dancing shadows, and opened a bottle of fine wine, meticulously crafting the kind of romantic ambience that had once made him feel like the luckiest man alive. "I was thinking," she began, her voice soft as she cut into her meat with delicate, almost surgical precision. "Perhaps we should consider some changes around here." "What sort of changes?" he asked, chewing slowly, savoring the taste of the roast, a counterpoint to the bitterness in his soul. "Well, darling, this house is becoming quite expensive to maintain, and with my promotion to the marketing firm, I'm earning significantly more money now. Perhaps it's time for you to truly consider slowing down, taking better care of yourself." Aaron continued to chew, his gaze fixed on her. "I enjoy my work." "I know you do, my love," she purred, her voice dripping with feigned concern. "But you're almost 40, honey. How much longer can you keep crawling around in dusty attics and damp basements? What happens when your back finally gives out, or your knees?" She reached across the table, her fingers gently caressing his hand. Her engagement ring, a symbol of their vows, glinted brilliantly in the candlelight. The very ring he had painstakingly saved for 6 months to purchase, working every available overtime shift, subsisting on instant noodles and cheap coffee. "I just want us to be secure," she continued, her voice gaining a deceptive earnestness. "Perhaps we could explore the possibility of cashing out some of your retirement early, investing it in something smarter. Julian knows a great deal about these things." There it was. Julian. "What does Julian have to do with our finances?" Aaron asked, his voice still carefully modulated. "Nothing directly, of course," she said, quickly, a touch too quickly. "He simply mentioned some intriguing investment opportunities. Real estate development projects that could truly yield significant returns." She squeezed his hand, her touch now feeling like a viper's coil. "We could finally have the life we've always dreamed about." "I thought we already did," he stated, his voice flat. Something subtly shifted in her expression, a momentary lapse, like a mask briefly slipping, revealing a hint of the truth beneath. "Don't be so literal, Aaron," she chastised softly. "You know precisely what I mean." After dinner, while Clara was immersed in a relaxing bath, Aaron slipped out to his truck. He plugged the burner USB drive in his laptop. The files were audio recordings, meticulously dated over the past 6 months. His heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drum against his stoic facade, as he clicked on the first one. Clara's voice. He signed the papers yesterday. He'd barely even read them. Then, Julian's voice, clear and confident. "Good. That gives us full access to the joint account. What about the retirement fund?" Clara's voice again. "That's trickier, but I'm working on it. I told them we needed to restructure for tax purposes." Julian's laugh, derisive and cutting. "And he believed you?" Clara, her voice laced with a sneering contempt that turned Aaron's blood to ice. "Aaron's not stupid, but he trusts me. Sometimes I think he trusts everyone too much. It's actually kind of pathetic." Julian's laughter followed, a cruel, mocking sound. "Poor bastard. Working his ass off while we plan his future." "Don't feel sorry for him," Clara retorted, her voice hard. "He'll be fine. He's resourceful, and it's not like I'm taking everything, just most of it." "Julian, what about the daughter?" "Clara, what about Sophie? She's suspicious. Asked me some weird questions at the barbecue last month. Sophie's a busybody who never liked me anyway. Once this is over, she won't be our problem anymore." Aaron stopped the recording, the chilling words echoing in the confined space of his truck. He sat in the suffocating darkness, listening only to the ragged sound of his own breathing. The woman he had loved for 7 years, the woman he had married and meticulously built a life with, was speaking about him as if he were nothing more than a gullible mark in an elaborate con game. He clicked on the next recording. Clara's voice again. The pool installation starts next week. Once that's done, I'll file for separation. Cite emotional distance. Maybe some fabricated financial irresponsibility on his part. Julian, are you sure you want to wait that long? Clara, I need the pool finished first. It adds significant value to the house, and I want every single penny when we sell. Julian, we sell. Clara, a dismissive sigh. Oh, honey, did you truly think I was planning to remain in that suburban nightmare forever? Once I secure my half of everything, we're buying that sleek condo in Miami. The one with the breathtaking ocean view. Julian, what if he fights the divorce? Clara, her voice chillingly confident. He won't. Aaron's old-fashioned. He'll try to be noble about it. Give me whatever I ask for rather than drag things out in court. Besides, I've been meticulously documenting his moods, his stress levels. I can construct a compelling case for emotional instability if I need to. Julian, you're scary, you know that. Claire, I'm practical. There's a crucial difference. Aaron turned off the laptop, the screen going dark. He stared at his house, the very structure he had once considered their sanctuary, their future. Every light blazed, making it glow like a deceptively welcoming beacon in the surrounding darkness. Clara was likely in their bedroom now, meticulously moisturizing her face, perhaps engrossed in a romance novel, flawlessly playing the role of the devoted wife. Tomorrow, she would offer him a tender kiss goodbye, inquire about his day upon his return. She would laugh at his jokes, curl up against him as they watched television. She would perform their marriage, a flawless actress who had committed every single line to memory. His phone vibrated. Sophie. Hey, Dad. I've been thinking about Mom's call to my office. Something just feels off. What do you mean? Aaron asked, his voice carefully neutral. She was asking really specific questions about your benefits, like what would happen if you died or became disabled. Who would get the money? It's just weird, you know? Aaron closed his eyes, a fresh wave of nausea washing over him. Yeah, weird. Are you guys okay? You sound strange. We're fine, sweetheart. Just tired. Okay, but Dad, Sophie's voice took on a serious tone. If something was wrong, you'd tell me, right? Of course. After he hung up, Aaron remained in his truck, a silent sentinel, until the very last light in the house extinguished. Then he drove to the 24-hour diner on Highway 36, where he ordered a scalding black coffee and attempted, with a grim determination, to piece together what in the hell he was supposed to do with the shredded remnants of his life. The following morning, Clara was already gone when Aaron awoke. A hastily scrawled note on the kitchen counter explained that she had an early meeting with a client. Aaron mechanically made coffee and toast, attempting to project an air of normalcy, even though normalcy now felt like a poorly fitting costume. His phone buzzed with a text from Julian. Hey man, absolutely thrilled for dinner tomorrow. Clara's been planning something truly special. Aaron stared at the message for an extended, contemplative moment before finally typing back, "Can't wait." He spent the day meticulously installing a new heating system in a sprawling, opulent residence, deliberately losing himself in the familiar, comforting routine of measuring, cutting, and connecting. Physical labor had always been his sanctuary, a form of meditation that effectively quieted the incessant clamor of his mind, allowing him to focus on problems that, unlike his current predicament, possessed clear, tangible solutions. But today, even the most demanding work couldn't halt the relentless churning of his brain. He kept replaying the recordings, dissecting every conversation he had shared with Clara over the preceding 6 months, desperately searching for the subtle signs he had so tragically overlooked. There were, he realized with a sinking heart, plenty of them, Her sudden, avid interest in their financial affairs, the increasing frequency of her late work nights, the proliferation of new, expensive clothes and high-end cosmetics, the gym membership she had insisted upon, even though they were supposedly in a period of stringent saving. And Julian, his best friend since they were 17, sharing clandestine beers behind the old hardware store, dreaming aloud of escaping their sleepy hometown. Julian had been the first to leave, heading off to college on a partial scholarship, while Aaron, after graduation, had dutifully enlisted. When Aaron finally returned home, Julian was already well on his way to constructing his burgeoning real estate empire. Yet, their friendship had effortlessly resumed, as if no time, no significant life changes had ever transpired between them. Julian had stood as his best man. Aaron had returned the favor for Julian. Now, Julian was not only sleeping with his wife, but also meticulously planning to strip him bare. That evening, Aaron drove to a secluded bar on the far side of town and dialed the number etched onto a business card he had discreetly carried in his wallet for 2 long years. Nora Jensen, private investigator. They had crossed paths at Julian's boisterous birthday party, where she had been dating one of Julian's lesser business partners. She had playfully handed Aaron her card, a half-joke after he had regaled the group with a comical, if frustrating, anecdote about attempting to track down a stolen tool trailer. "Keep this," she equipped with a knowing smile. "You never know when you might need a professional snoop." The phone rang 3 times before she answered, her voice crisp and professional. "Jensen Investigations. Nora, this is Aaron Vance. We met at Julian's party." "Ah," the HVAC guy with the honest face. Her voice, while warm, held a distinct note of caution. "What can I do for you, Aaron?" "I need help," he said, his voice raw with unspoken urgency. "And I need someone I can absolutely trust." "That sounds ominous," she responded, the warmth fading slightly, replaced by a professional wariness. "Where are you?" "The Griffin's Roost on Elm Street. I'll be there in 20 minutes." Nora arrived promptly, dressed in practical jeans and a sleek leather jacket, her dark hair pulled back into a no-nonsense ponytail. She was in her early 30s, possessing sharp, intelligent eyes and the kind of quiet confidence that stemmed from years of navigating the darkest, most vulnerable moments of other people's lives. She slid into the booth opposite him and ordered a beer. "You look like hell, Aaron. What's going on?" He recounted everything, leaving no detail untouched. The shocking photographs, the damning audio recordings, the slow, agonizing realization that his entire marriage had been nothing more than a meticulously orchestrated, brutal deception. Nora listened without interruption, her expression unreadable, occasionally nodding or making precise, concise notes on a small pad. When he finally finished, she leaned back, her gaze intently studying his face. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice surprisingly empathetic. "That's a particularly cruel kind of betrayal. I need to know what they're planning," Aaron stated, his voice flat with resolve. "Every single detail." "I can certainly assist with that," she confirmed. "But first, allow me to ask you something crucial. What do you want the end game to be here?" Aaron paused, considering her question. A mere week ago, he would have unequivocally stated that he simply wanted his wife back, yearned to somehow repair whatever fundamental flaw had shattered their connection. Now, however, he felt something entirely different, something cold, relentlessly patient, and utterly devoid of mercy. "I want them to pay," he said quietly, the words emerging like chips of ice. Nora smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. It was a predatory, knowing curve of the lips. "Now you're speaking my language." Over the next hour, they meticulously forged a plan. Nora would initiate comprehensive surveillance on both Clara and Julian, assiduously documenting their activities and systematically gathering irrefutable evidence of the affair and the elaborate financial fraud. Aaron, for his part, would continue to play the role of the unsuspecting, oblivious husband, while simultaneously and covertly protecting his remaining assets and meticulously building an unassailable legal case. The absolute key here is patience, Nora explained, her voice steady and instructional. Let them believe they are triumphing. Grant them enough rope to metaphorically hang themselves. Then, when you possess every piece of evidence you require, you pull the trigger. How long will this take? Aaron asked, the question heavy with the weight of his resolve. A few weeks, perhaps a month, she mused, taking a long sip of her beer. It depends entirely on how sloppy they become. She finished her drink and stood up, dropping a crisp $20 bill onto the table. I'll be in touch very soon. And Aaron, understand this. This entire process is going to become exceedingly ugly before it has any chance of improving. Ensure you're truly ready for that. The dinner with Julian was, as anticipated, excruciating. They chose an upscale Italian establishment downtown, the kind of restaurant where the portions were laughably minuscule and the prices were, quite simply, astronomical. Clara wore a newly acquired dress that likely cost more than Aaron earned in an entire week, and she looked breathtakingly beautiful in it, a fact that only amplified the gnawing bitterness within him. Julian arrived a full 15 minutes late, effusive with apologies and enveloped in a cloud of expensive cologne. He embraced Clara with an intimacy that lingered a fraction too long, then offered Aaron his hand, his grip firm and ostensibly sincere, designed to convey a false sense of genuine friendship. Sorry, guys, he chirped. Client meeting just ran a little late. You know how it is. They settled at a table by the window, observing the slow, evening crawl of traffic through the bustling city. Julian immediately ordered an exorbitantly priced bottle of wine and launched into an enthusiastic monologue about his latest development project, a series of ultra-luxury condominiums perched near the scenic waterfront. The profit margins are absolutely insane, he declared, gesturing expansively with his wine glass, his eyes gleaming with avarice. We're talking about a 200% return on investment, perhaps even more. Sounds rather risky, Aaron commented, his voice flat. All truly good investments carry an element of risk, my friend, Julian retorted, a smug smile playing on his lips. That's precisely what differentiates the genuinely wealthy from the merely comfortable. Julian's gaze shifted, briefly, to Clara, a shared, silent acknowledgement passing between them. Speaking of which, Aaron, I've been giving considerable thought to what we discussed, Clara. The investment opportunity. Aaron looked at his wife, feigning confusion. What investment opportunity? Clara's cheeks flushed a barely perceptible shade of pink. Julian merely mentioned some projects that might prove beneficial for us. I was, of course, planning to discuss it with you. I'm just saying, Julian interjected, leaning forward conspiratorially, his voice dropping to a persuasive murmur. You two are practically sitting on a gold mine with your substantial retirement savings. Why allow it to languish in some low-yield account when you could be actively building genuine, substantial wealth? Because it's retirement money, Aaron stated, his voice devoid of inflection. It's supposed to be safe. Safe, Julian scoffed, a dismissive flick of his wrist. Safe is merely another term for stagnant. He leaned further across the table, his eyes boring into Aaron's. Look, Aaron, I understand completely. You work incredibly hard for your money, but at some critical juncture, you must compel your money to work just as hard for you. Clara nodded enthusiastically, her agreement palpable. That's precisely what I've been tirelessly attempting to convey to him. Aaron offered a faint, almost imperceptible smile and took a slow, deliberate sip of his wine. Allow me to consider it, he said. For the remainder of the dinner, he observed them with a cold, clinical detachment. The way Julian's hand lingered on Clara's shoulder as he courteously assisted her with her coat. The way her laughter sounded just a fraction too loud, too forced at his jokes. The way their eyes would meet, a brief, conspiratorial flash, when they mistakenly believed he wasn't paying attention. They were skilled at their deception, but not utterly flawless. There were subtle micro-expressions, almost imperceptible touches, shared glances that endured a fraction of a second too long. To any casual observer, they would have appeared as nothing more than friends enjoying a pleasant dinner. To Aaron, however, armed with his chilling new knowledge, they looked precisely like what they were, conspirators. After dinner, Julian boldly suggested drinks at a nearby bar. Aaron politely demurred, citing an early morning job, but conspicuously encouraged Clara to go. "You never get to go out anymore," he said, leaning in to kiss her cheek, the taste of her lies a bitter tang on his lips. "Have fun." Driving home alone, Aaron felt a strange, familiar sensation, one he hadn't experienced since his arduous deployment overseas. It was the calm that accompanied the full acceptance of a critical mission. He now possessed a clear objective, a defined target, and a meticulously crafted plan. Nora called the next morning with her initial report, delivered without preamble. They went to the Grandview Hotel downtown after drinks, she stated. Room 412, paid for with a credit card registered to one of Julian's shell companies. How long? 3 hours. I got photos of them entering and leaving, should you require them for court. What else? I followed Julian to his office this morning. He met with a lawyer named Patterson, who specializes in asset protection. Then he had lunch with someone from Mayor Caldwell's office. I'm still working on identifying that connection. The mayor, Aaron asked, a dark note entering his voice. Your boy Julian has his fingers in a lot of pies, Nora commented, a dry, cynical edge to her tone. And some of them, I'm afraid, smell decidedly rotten. Nora paused, then continued, her voice grim. There's something else, Aaron. I managed to hack into Clara's email. She's been in active communication with a divorce attorney for the past 3 weeks. Aaron sat down heavily in his kitchen chair, the news a physical blow. 3 weeks. The lawyer's name is Evelyn Chase, Nora informed him. Very expensive, very aggressive. She specializes in high-asset divorces. According to their correspondence, Clara is planning to officially file papers next month, most likely after the pool's completed. She's also been extensively researching property values in Miami. It appears she's already picked out a specific condo. That afternoon, Aaron drove to the bank and, with quiet, surgical precision, moved half of their joint savings into a newly established account under his business name. It wasn't, he rationalized, stealing. It was his money too, after all. But it was a crucial first step. He also contacted his lawyer, a straightforward, reliable individual named Ben Carter, who had competently handled his first divorce 15 years prior. I need to see you, Aaron said, his voice urgent, devoid of any pleasantries. It's absolutely critical. Ben's office was situated in an unassuming strip mall, nestled between a bustling pizza place and a dry cleaner's. But he was renowned for his honesty, competence, and an impressive track record of never having lost a case he genuinely believed he could win. Jesus, Aaron, Ben exclaimed after listening to the full, shocking account. She's been meticulously planning this for months. What are my options, Ben? Aaron asked, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. Well, the good news is you possess strong evidence of adultery and financial deception, Ben explained, leaning back in his chair. That plays exceptionally well in court, particularly with a sympathetic plaintiff like yourself. Blue-collar guy, military veteran, faithful husband. He paused, Then continued. And the bad news? She has a significant head start. If she's been diligently hiding assets or subtly moving money around, it might take a considerable amount of time to track everything down. Tommy might not have once she officially files. Ben's gaze sharpened. My advice? Document absolutely everything. Gather even more evidence. And then file first. I want to wait, Aaron stated, surprising his lawyer. Why? Ben inquired, a perplexed frown creasing his brow. Aaron thought about the recordings, about Julian's callous laughter, about Clara contemptuously labeling him pathetic. Because I want them to truly believe they've won, he said quietly, his voice dangerously calm. Right up until the very moment they realize they've lost absolutely everything. Ben raised an eyebrow, a flicker of something akin to admiration mixed with concern in his eyes. That, Aaron, is not legal advice I can officially provide you. I'm not asking for legal advice on that particular part, Aaron clarified, his gaze unwavering. Over the subsequent 2 weeks, Nora meticulously constructed an airtight case. She captured Clara and Julian in compromising positions at 3 distinct hotels, compiling a damning photographic dossier. She documented covert meetings between Julian and various city officials. She unearthed irrefutable evidence that several of Julian's development projects were being inexplicably fast-tracked through the permitting process, despite glaring environmental concerns. Most crucially, she uncovered the full, intricate scope of their audacious financial plan. They're not merely attempting to steal your retirement, Nora explained during one of their clandestine meetings. The papers spread across her desk like a morbid tableau. They're actively using it to acquire property that Julian's company will then develop with highly questionable city funding. It's a classic shell game, Aaron, but an incredibly lucrative one. How much money are we talking about? Aaron asked, his voice devoid of emotion. Your part? Perhaps 200,000, Nora clarified. But the entire overarching scheme? Million, potentially tens of millions. Aaron stared at the array of photographs scattered across Nora's desk. His wife, his Clara, kissing another man. His best friend, Julian, shaking hands with blatantly corrupt officials. Financial documents, intricate and damning, illustrating money flowing through a labyrinthine network of interconnected shell companies. There's more, Nora continued, her voice grave. I strongly suspect they're planning to frame you. For what? Emotional instability, possibly even domestic issues. I discovered a recording on Clara's phone. She's been meticulously documenting your supposed mood swings and aggressive behavior. None of it's true, Aaron interjected, his voice tight. It doesn't have to be true, Aaron, Nora countered, her eyes sharp. It just has to sound utterly convincing to a judge. She's constructing a case against me. Aaron realized, the pieces clicking into place. A preemptive strike. Precisely. If you attempt to vigorously fight the divorce, she'll suddenly claim you're dangerous, secure a restraining order, perhaps even arrange for your arrest. Then she takes absolutely everything while you're hopelessly entangled in criminal charges. Aaron felt the ice in his chest, so long a solid block, finally crack, revealing something far darker and more primal stirring beneath. How long before they make their move? Soon, Nora confirmed. The pool's almost completely finished, and I intercepted an email from her lawyer. She's planning to file papers next Friday. Then we move first, Aaron stated, a cold resolve settling over him. That night, Aaron sat alone in his garage, the familiar scent of oil and metal filling the air, and meticulously compiled a list. Not a mundane to-do list, but a chilling target list. Clara and Julian were the primary objectives, the linchpins of the conspiracy. But there were secondary targets as well. Nicole, Clara's sister, who had facilitated the establishment of some of the shell companies. Mayor Caldwell, who had brazenly accepted bribes to fast-track Julian's dubious projects. The slimy lawyer who was actively laundering illicit money through fraudulent real estate transactions. By the time he finished, the list contained a dozen names. Nora had meticulously taught him to think like a predator, to study his prey, to learn their deeply ingrained habits, their subtle weaknesses, their innermost fears. Then, and only then, to strike with devastating precision when they were at their most vulnerable. Aaron had once been a soldier. He remembered precisely how to hunt. The following morning, Clara blithely announced that she was departing for a long weekend out of town. A business conference in Silver Sands Resort, she claimed, a valuable opportunity to network and absorb new marketing strategies. "Will you be all right here by yourself, darling?" she inquired, her fingers delicately tracing his cheek with a feigned, saccharine concern. "I'll manage," Aaron replied, his voice flat. "Perhaps you could use the time to truly relax. You seem so incredibly stressed lately." Aaron nodded, leaned in, and kissed her goodbye, the bitter taste of her deception a palpable presence on his lips. An hour after her departure, Nora's call confirmed his suspicions. "They're not in Silver Sands Resort," Nora stated, her voice brisk. "They're at a resort in Crimson Ridge Estates. Registered under fake names, but I've got photos." "Good," Aaron responded, his voice calm. "That gives us the entire weekend to work." Aaron spent Saturday meticulously installing surveillance equipment throughout his own house. Tiny, almost imperceptible cameras in the bedroom, the kitchen, the home office where Clara kept her computer. Nora had provided the gear, military-grade technology that was virtually undetectable to the untrained eye. "If she's recording you, Aaron, we're recording her," Nora had explained with a grim smile. Fair's fair. On Sunday, Aaron drove to Julian's imposing office building. The security, he noted with a grim satisfaction, was minimal, a single, lackadaisical guard who seemed more preoccupied with watching online videos than with fulfilling his duties. Aaron had performed enough commercial HVAC work to understand how to move through such buildings with the practiced stealth of shadow. Julian's corner office was precisely as Aaron had envisioned, replete with exorbitantly expensive furniture, cliched motivational posters adorning the walls, and a panoramic view of the city that likely cost more in monthly rent than Aaron earned in 6 months. Aaron methodically planted bugs in the office phone, the computer, and even the desk drawer where Julian kept his personal files. Then, with practiced ease, he photographed every single document he could locate, including several that meticulously detailed Mayor Caldwell's direct involvement in the illicit development scam. By Sunday night, Aaron possessed more than enough irrefutable evidence to utterly destroy both of them. Yet, he wasn't quite ready to pull the trigger. Not yet. He wanted them to make the first definitive move. He wanted them to officially file for divorce, to openly attempt to steal his money, to deliberately ruin his hard-earned reputation. Because the harder they struck him, he vowed, the harder he would relentlessly strike back. Clara returned from her supposed conference on Monday evening, her head full of elaborate stories about non-existent seminars and fictitious networking events. She appeared relaxed and genuinely happy, radiating the smug satisfaction of a job flawlessly executed. "I learned so much," she gushed over dinner, recounting tales of her imaginary exploits. "It truly opened my eyes to entirely new possibilities." "Like what?" Aaron inquired, his voice carefully neutral. "Oh, she replied vaguely, her hand waving dismissively. "Different approaches to marketing, innovative new ways to cultivate client relationships." She smiled, a dazzling, yet utterly false, display of charm. I truly believe it's going to lead to some truly exciting opportunities for us. Erin nodded, prompting her with questions about her presentations, her hotel accommodations, the other attendees. Clara answered every question with a smooth, effortless grace, constructing an elaborate, intricate fiction that would have been genuinely impressive had it not been so fundamentally evil. After dinner, she playfully suggested they christen the newly installed pool with a midnight swim. They had only utilized it twice since its completion, and Clara had been relentlessly pushing for them to enjoy it more frequently. "It's such a beautiful night," she purred, slipping into a sleek bikini that tantalizingly accentuated every curve of her body. "And we paid so much for this thing. We absolutely should get our money's worth." They swam together in the velvety darkness, the underwater lights casting an ethereal blue glow on their skin. Clara was playful and openly affectionate, wrapping her arms around his neck and kissing him with a fervent passion reminiscent of newlyweds. "I love you," she whispered against his ear, her voice husky. "I love our life together, Erin." Aaron held her close, his arms around her, and told her that he loved her too. And for a fleeting, disorienting moment, he almost believed it himself. This was the woman he had irrevocably fallen in love with 7 years ago. This was the Clara who had made him believe, truly believe, in the possibility of happy endings. But then, the searing clarity returned. He remembered the damning recordings, the illicit photographs, the meticulously orchestrated plan to utterly destroy him. This wasn't love. This was a chillingly brilliant, utterly convincing performance art. 2 days later, Nora called with the news Aaron had been anticipating with a cold dread. "She filed this morning," Nora stated, her voice devoid of emotion. "Divorce papers, citing irreconcilable differences and emotional estrangement. She's demanding the house, half of your retirement, and spousal support." "What about the restraining order?" Aaron asked, his jaw tight. "Not yet," Nora replied. "But her lawyer filed a motion claiming you've been exhibiting erratic behavior. They're building the case gradually, meticulously." "How long do I have?" Aaron inquired, his voice barely a whisper. "You'll be served tomorrow," Nora confirmed, "probably at work. After that, Aaron, it's showtime." Aaron was meticulously replacing a furnace in a bustling downtown office building when the process server finally located him. The young man appeared genuinely apologetic as he extended the stack of official papers. "Sorry, Mr. Vance. Just doing my job." Aaron read the documents in the quiet confines of his truck, carefully scrutinizing Clara's meticulously worded accusations. According to her carefully crafted version of events, he had become increasingly unstable over the past year, prone to angry outbursts, financially irresponsible, and emotionally withdrawn. She artfully painted herself as a concerned, long-suffering wife desperately attempting to salvage a failing marriage. It was all a calculated fabrication, yet they were believable lies, the kind that would resonate with a judge who knew neither of them personally. That evening, Aaron returned home to find Clara waiting for him in the kitchen, a bottle of wine uncorked on the counter, a sad, practiced smile gracing her lips. "I guess you received the papers," she murmured softly, her voice perfectly modulated. Aaron placed the documents on the counter without looking at her. "Yeah. I'm truly sorry it came to this, Aaron. I really am." Her voice was flawlessly calibrated, hurt but hopeful, disappointed but not bitter. "I kept thinking we could work things out." But what?" "You've been so distant lately," she continued, a single, glistening tear trailing down her cheek. "So angry all the time. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells around you." Aaron poured himself a glass of wine and sat across from her. "I'm not angry." "You are angry right now," she insisted, her voice rising slightly. "I can see it in your eyes." You just served me with divorce papers, Clara. What did you expect? I expected you to talk to me, she sobbed, more tears welling in her eyes. To fight for us. She gestured helplessly around the kitchen. But you're just sitting there like you don't even care. It was a masterful, Oscar-worthy performance. If Aaron hadn't known the horrifying truth, he might have believed her completely. He might have collapsed to his knees and desperately begged for another chance. Instead, he reached across the table and gently took her hand. "You're right," he said quietly, his voice imbued with a carefully constructed vulnerability. "I haven't been the husband you deserve, Clara. I've been so utterly focused on work, on tirelessly providing for us, that I completely forgot about everything else." Clara's tears abruptly ceased. She looked genuinely confused, like a seasoned actress who had suddenly forgotten her lines in the middle of a pivotal scene. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe this is for the best," Aaron continued, his gaze soft, forgiving. "Perhaps we both deserve a fresh start." "Ew. You're not going to fight the divorce?" she stammered, her voice incredulous. Aaron squeezed her hand gently. "What will be the point, Clara? If you're truly not happy, if I simply can't make you happy, then dragging this out endlessly in court would only hurt both of us more." Clara stared at him for a long, searching moment. She had meticulously prepared herself for anger, for vehement denial, for desperate, pleading entreaties. She had not, under any circumstance, prepared for this placid, almost benevolent acceptance. "I want you to have the house," Aaron continued, his voice unwavering. "And the pool. You invested so much personal effort into making this place truly beautiful. It should absolutely be yours." That's incredibly generous," she managed, her voice still tinged with suspicion. "I just want you to be happy, Clara. That's all I've ever truly wanted." Now, Clara looked genuinely bewildered. This unexpected turn was decidedly not part of the script she had so painstakingly rehearsed with her high-powered lawyer. "What about your retirement? The settlement? We'll figure it out," Aaron said, his tone still remarkably calm. "I trust you to be fair." Clara nodded slowly, but Aaron could practically see the intricate gears turning behind her eyes. She was desperately attempting to decipher what elaborate game he was playing, what hidden trap he was meticulously setting for her. There was no trap. Not yet, at least. Aaron was simply giving her precisely what she had so brazenly desired, exactly what she had so meticulously planned to take. And by making it so incredibly easy for her, he knew what was to come next would be all the more devastating for her to comprehend. Over the following week, Aaron flawlessly played the role of the defeated, emotionally shattered husband. He relocated into a nondescript motel on the far side of town, taking with him only his clothes and essential tools. He acquiesced to every single demand Clara's lawyer made, signing documents without even a cursory glance, accepting settlement terms that bordered on outright theft. His own lawyer, Ben Carter, was utterly baffled. "She's taking you to the cleaners, Aaron," Ben had exclaimed in frustration. "Why aren't you fighting this tooth and nail?" "Because I'm tired, Ben," Aaron had shrugged, feigning exhaustion. "I just want it to be over." "This isn't like you," Ben had insisted, still perplexed. "You're one of the most stubborn guys I know." Aaron offered another shrug. "Maybe I'm changing." Meanwhile, Nora continued her relentless surveillance. Clara and Julian, emboldened by their apparent, effortless victory, were growing increasingly careless. They were openly seen together at ostentatious, expensive restaurants, leisurely shopping for new furniture, even openly perusing luxury condos in Miami. "They truly believe they've won," Nora reported, her voice laced with grim amusement. "Julian's already openly discussing liquidating your retirement fund to invest in his next grand project." "How soon?" Aaron asked, days, perhaps a week. Once the divorce is officially finalized, they'll move with lightning speed. Then it's time, Aaron stated, the words cold and resolute. Aaron had spent the week methodically preparing for war. He had strategically transferred his business assets to a shell corporation, relocated his tools and essential equipment to a secure, undisclosed storage facility, and meticulously documented every single piece of incriminating evidence Nora had painstakingly gathered. But more importantly, he had mentally prepared himself for the profound shift he was about to undergo. The Aaron who had trusted blindly, who had naively believed in the inherent goodness of people, who had habitually turned the other cheek, that man was gone. In his place stood someone forged in a harder, colder crucible. Someone who now understood, with chilling clarity, that mercy was a luxury he could no longer afford to extend. The first shot was fired on a crisp Thursday morning. Aaron walked into the formidable offices of the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Economic Crimes Unit and laid out the entire, meticulously detailed case against Julian and Mayor Caldwell. The evidence he presented was overwhelming, indisputable. Hours of damning recorded conversations, irrefutable financial documents, crystal-clear photographs of illicit money changing hands. Agent Serena Chun listened to his narrative without betraying a single emotion, occasionally interjecting with concise, clarifying questions or requesting additional documentation. "This is extensive, Mr. Vance," she finally said, her voice flat. "How long have you been gathering this information?" "A few weeks," Aaron replied. "And you are absolutely certain about its accuracy?" "I am certain." Agent Chun nodded slowly, a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes. "We'll need to verify every single detail, but if this information is accurate, Mr. Vance, you've just handed us a major corruption case. We're talking about federal charges, RICO violations. These individuals could realistically spend decades in prison." "Good," Aaron simply stated. The second shot came an hour later. Aaron drove to the offices of the local newspaper and arranged a meeting with investigative reporter Benjamin Reed. Reed had been tirelessly digging into city corruption for months, but he had been unable to connect all the disparate dots. Aaron, with surgical precision, connected them for him. "Jesus Christ," Reed muttered, his eyes wide as he scrolled rapidly through the intricate financial documents on his laptop. "This is Watergate-level stuff, Mr. Vance. The mayor has been taking bribes for years. Can you run with it?" Aaron asked. "Are you kidding me?" Reed exclaimed, his voice incredulous. "This is the story of my career." Reed looked up from the screen, his expression now serious. "But you do realize this is going to destroy far more than just the mayor and your friend, right? There are a lot of incredibly powerful people involved in these deals." "I'm counting on it," Aaron replied, a chillingly calm note in his voice. The third shot was the most personal, the most agonizing. Aaron drove to Julian's gleaming office building and rode the elevator to the 15th floor. Julian's impeccably dressed secretary announced him, and a moment later, Aaron was sitting directly across from his former best friend. "Aaron!" Julian exclaimed, rising from his desk with a wide, expansive smile, his arms outstretched for a hug. "How are you holding up, buddy? I heard about the divorce. I am truly, incredibly sorry." Aaron didn't stand. "Are you?" he asked, his voice flat, emotionless. Julian's practiced smile faltered just a fraction. "Of course I am. You guys seem so happy." "Seemed," Aaron echoed. "Look, I know this is hard," Julian continued, attempting to regain his composure. "Divorce is never easy, but perhaps it's truly for the best. You know, sometimes people simply grow apart." Aaron studied Julian's face, the face he had known intimately since they were awkward teenagers, the face that had stood faithfully beside him at his wedding, that had shared 1,000 beers and a million confidential conversations. I brought you something, Aaron said, pulling out his phone. He pressed play on the first recording. Clara's voice, clear and chilling, filled the spacious office. He signed the papers yesterday. He barely even read them. Then Julian's voice, equally damning. Good. That gives us full access to the joint account. The color drained from Julian's face as his own incriminating words echoed back to him. He made a desperate lunge for the phone, but Aaron deftly pulled it away. There's more, Aaron said calmly, his voice steady as granite. Hours of it. You two really should have been more careful about where you conducted your conversations. Julian sank back into his luxurious chair, his mouth opening and closing uselessly like a fish out of water. Aaron, I can explain. No need, Aaron interjected, his voice cold and final. It's all perfectly clear. Aaron slowly stood. The FBI has copies of absolutely everything. So does the newspaper. By tomorrow morning, this entire city is going to know precisely what you've been up to. You can't do this, Julian pleaded, his voice cracking with desperation. We're friends. We've been friends since we were 17. I remember. Aaron's voice was ice cold, devoid of any warmth or nostalgia. I also remember being your best man. I remember helping you move when you secured your first apartment. I remember lending you money when your business was struggling. Julian. Julian's hands were visibly shaking now, clutching at the arms of his chair. Look, Clara and I, it just happened. We didn't plan it. You didn't plan falling in love. Perhaps, Aaron interrupted, his voice rising slightly, a controlled fury simmering beneath the surface. But you most definitely planned stealing my money. Aaron leaned forward, his eyes boring into Julian's. $200,000, Julian. That was my retirement, my future. And you were going to take it all to buy yourself a luxurious condo in Miami. He scoffed. And you're going to pay me back with what? The imaginary profits from your next scam? Aaron shook his head slowly. You know what the truly funny thing is, Julian? I might have, in time, even forgiven the affair. People fall out of love. It happens. But the money, the meticulously crafted lies, the way you both laughed about how pathetic I was. Julian tried desperately to speak, but no words emerged from his constricted throat. The FBI will be here this afternoon with a warrant, Aaron continued, his voice relentless. They're going to seize your computers, your files, your bank records. They're going to meticulously uncover every bribe you paid, every deal you fixed, every single law you broke. Aaron, please. Julian whimpered, tears beginning to well in his eyes. And when they're done with you, Julian, Aaron concluded, his voice low and utterly without mercy, when you're sitting in a federal prison, contemplating how you senselessly threw away 30 years of genuine friendship for a woman who's probably going to ruthlessly testify against you to save her own skin, I want you to remember something. Aaron walked to the door, then paused, turning back. I want you to remember that I gave you every single chance to be honest with me. Every chance to be the friend I foolishly thought you were. You chose to be my enemy instead. He left Julian Thorne sitting utterly alone in his opulent office, staring blankly at the phone that contained the irrefutable evidence of his own meticulous, self-engineered destruction. By evening, the news was pervasive, inescapable. The glaring headline in the city paper blared. Mayor, developer charged in massive corruption scheme. Benjamin Reed's accompanying article laid out the entire sordid conspiracy in devastating, unsparing detail, naming names and providing meticulous documentation. Aaron watched the relentless news coverage from his nondescript motel room, slowly eating takeout Chinese food and sipping a cold beer. His phone had been ringing incessantly all day, relentless reporters clamoring for comments, shocked friends expressing their disbelief, his daughter Sophie calling repeatedly to ensure he was all right. He had finally turned it off hours ago. Tonight, he simply desired to watch the meticulously constructed world he had known burn down around him. Clara called the motel directly at 10 p.m. The desk clerk, after her insistent claim of being his wife, put her through. Aaron, thank God. Her voice was frantic, bordering on hysterical. I've been desperately trying to reach you all day. I saw the news. This is absolutely insane. Julian's been arrested. The FBI came to my office. They're saying he's been stealing money, taking bribes. Imagine that. Aaron interjected, his voice flat. There was a long, uncomfortable pause. When Clara finally spoke again, her voice was markedly different. Careful, calculated. They asked me about our divorce, about our finances. They seemed to think I was involved somehow. Were you? Aaron asked, his voice dangerously even. Of course not. How could you even ask that? She shrieked, a touch of genuine panic entering her voice. Just wondering. Another prolonged silence stretched between them. Aaron, I need to see you, she pleaded, her voice dropping to a low, desperate whisper. We absolutely need to talk about this. There's nothing to talk about, Clara. Yes, there is. The police think Julian used our divorce to hide money. They think I helped him. You have to tell them that's not true. Aaron smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. It was a cold, predatory curve of his lips. Doi. Aaron, did you know, Clara, Aaron continued, his voice chillingly calm, that adultery significantly affects property division in divorce cases, especially when it's combined with documented financial fraud? The silence on the other end of the line stretched for nearly a minute, thick with unvoiced fear. I don't know what you're talking about, Clara finally stammered, her voice thin. The Grandview Hotel downtown, room 412, Aaron recited, his voice deliberately slow, methodical. The resort in Crimson Ridge Estates. Your romantic weekend, while I was home installing surveillance equipment in our house. Surveillance equipment? She gasped, her voice shrill with disbelief. Cameras, microphones, GPS trackers. Aaron listed, detached amusement in his tone. Amazing what you can purchase online these days, isn't it? He took a slow sip of beer. And even more amazing what people say when they truly believe no one's listening. Clara's breathing became ragged, a desperate wheeze through the phone line. You've been spying on me. I've been protecting myself, Clara, Aaron corrected, his voice hardening. Turns out that was a rather astute decision. Aaron, please, whatever you think you know. I know everything, Clara. Aaron cut her off, his voice resonating with an unshakable certainty. I know about the shell companies, the hidden assets, the meticulously crafted plan to claim I was mentally unstable. I know about the condo in Miami and the fake business conference in Silver Sands Resort. You're scaring me, she whimpered. Good, Aaron retorted, his voice chilling. You should be scared, because tomorrow morning, I'm filing new paperwork with the court. Adultery, fraud, conspiracy. By the time I'm finished, Clara, you'll be incredibly fortunate to keep the clothes on your back. You bastard, she shrieked, the veneer of civility finally shattering. You miserable, pathetic bastard. There it was, the true Clara. The carefully constructed mask had finally, irrevocably, slipped away. There's the woman I married, Aaron said, a grim satisfaction in his voice. For a minute there, I almost missed her. You think you're so smart, she snarled, raw hatred pouring through the phone. You think you've won, but you have absolutely no idea what you're dealing with. Enlighten me, Aaron challenged, his voice cold. Julian has friends, powerful friends, people who will not appreciate what you've done. People who might decide you're a problem that needs to be solved. Is that a threat, Clara? It's a warning, she hissed, from someone who used to care about you. Aaron laughed. It was a sound devoid of humor, devoid of warmth, a dry, rasping sound. You never cared about me, Clara. I was simply a meal ticket, a steady paycheck with reliable benefits and a secure pension. Nothing more. That's not true, she protested weakly. It's completely true, Aaron affirmed, his voice unyielding. And you know what? I'm perfectly okay with it, because it means I don't have to feel a shred of guilt about what happens next. He hung up before she could respond, ending the call with a definitive click. The next morning ushered in a flurry of new developments. Julian Thorne had been denied bail after zealous prosecutors successfully argued he posed a significant flight risk. Two more city officials, implicated in the sprawling corruption network, had been swiftly arrested. The FBI, acting with decisive speed, had frozen the assets belonging to a dozen interconnected shell companies. And Clara Hawthorne had been served with new, devastating divorce papers that unequivocally accused her of adultery, egregious financial fraud, and active conspiracy to commit theft. Aaron met with Ben Carter at 9 a.m. to review their comprehensive strategy. This is truly beautiful work, Aaron, Ben said, his eyes scanning the voluminous evidence files, a rare admiration in his voice. I've never, in my 25 years of practice, encountered a case this meticulously airtight. She's going to be utterly destroyed in court. What about criminal charges? Aaron inquired. That's ultimately up to the prosecutor, Ben explained, but I'd say it's highly likely. The FBI seems remarkably interested in her specific role in the money laundering scheme. Good, Aaron responded, a chilling sense of satisfaction settling over him. Ben looked up from the files, his expression contemplative. You know, Aaron, I've been practicing law for a quarter of a century. I've witnessed countless messy divorces, dealt with more than my share of angry spouses. But I have never, not once, seen anyone plan revenge with this level of methodical precision. Is that a problem, Ben? Aaron asked, his gaze unwavering. Not legally, Aaron. Everything you did was perfectly within the bounds of the law. I'm simply wondering if you're truly okay with what you've become. Aaron thought about it deeply. The man he had been just 3 weeks prior would have been utterly horrified by the calculated ruthlessness of his actions. That man had genuinely believed in forgiveness, in the transformative power of second chances, in the fundamental goodness of people. But that man, he now realized with chilling clarity, had also been a profound fool. I'm fine with it, Aaron said, his voice firm, resolute. The civil war between Aaron and Clara raged for 6 tumultuous weeks. She hired the most exorbitantly expensive, aggressively litigious lawyer in the entire city. But there was simply no effective defense against the mountain of irrefutable evidence Nora had so diligently gathered. Audio recordings, damning video surveillance, intricate financial documents. It all painted a crystal clear, horrifying picture of a woman who had systematically betrayed her trusting husband while simultaneously planning to brazenly steal his life savings. Clara fought dirty, as expected. She accused Aaron of fabricated domestic issues, emotional abuse, and mental instability. She baselessly claimed he had threatened her, stalked her, and egregiously invaded her privacy. None of it stuck. Aaron had been too careful, too meticulously methodical. Every single conversation had been recorded, every action meticulously documented. When Clara's lawyer attempted to portray her as the innocent victim of an oppressive, abusive husband, Aaron's legal team calmly played recordings of her laughing openly about his pathetic trust and meticulously planning his financial destruction. The final decisive hearing was convened on a dreary, gray Tuesday morning in November. Clara sat at the defendant's table, looking nothing like the vibrant, confident woman who had kissed Julian in their garage just 6 weeks earlier. She had visibly lost weight. Her once immaculate hair was unkempt and lifeless, and her designer clothes had been replaced by a simple, worn black dress that had clearly seen better days. The judge, a stern, unyielding woman in her 60s, read the settlement terms aloud, her voice resonant and uncompromising. Clara would receive absolutely nothing from the marriage except her meager personal belongings. The house would be immediately sold, with all proceeds going directly to Aaron. She would be compelled to pay him spousal support for 2 years, and she would bear sole responsibility for all legal fees, a crushing financial burden. Furthermore, the judge continued, her gaze fixed on Clara, I am officially referring this case to the district attorney's office for possible criminal prosecution. The overwhelming evidence presented strongly suggests that Mrs. Hawthorne engaged in a pervasive pattern of fraud and deception that may very well constitute criminal conspiracy. Clara's lawyer frantically requested an appeal, but it was summarily denied. The evidence was simply too overwhelming, the fraud too glaringly obvious. As they exited the courthouse into the chill November air, Clara caught up to Aaron in the parking lot. I hope you're happy, she said, her voice hollow, utterly devoid of life. I'm satisfied, Aaron replied, his voice flat. You've destroyed my life, she accused, a fresh wave of bitterness in her tone. You destroyed mine first, Aaron countered, his gaze unwavering. I merely returned the favor. Clara stared at him with unadulterated hatred, her eyes blazing. I loved you once. No, you didn't, Aaron said, his voice calm, rational. You love what I could provide. There's a crucial difference, Clara. And what about you? Did you ever truly love me? Aaron considered the question for a moment. Yeah, he conceded. I loved who I thought you were. But that person never existed, did she? Clara offered no response. She simply turned and walked away, her heels clicking mournfully on the wet asphalt, and disappeared into the bleak, gray November morning. Aaron Vance never saw her again. 3 months later, he was sitting in his new apartment, a modest, functional place across town, sparsely furnished with only the bare essentials, when Nora called with an update. Julian took a plea deal, she reported. 7 years in federal prison. He'll be eligible for parole in 5. What about Clara? Aaron asked, his voice neutral. 2 years suspended sentence, but she's utterly broke, completely wiped out financially. Last I heard, she was working at a department store in Capital City. And the others? Mayor Caldwell got 15 years. His fixer got 10. Most of the smaller fish are cooperating with prosecutors to avoid significant jail time. Aaron nodded slowly. Justice had, by all accounts, been served. Yet it felt hollow somehow. He had expected a profound satisfaction, perhaps even a surge of triumph. Instead, he felt an unsettling emptiness. You okay? Nora inquired, her voice tinged with concern. I'm fine, Aaron replied, the words feeling like a lie even as he spoke them. You don't sound fine. Aaron looked around his new apartment. It was clean and functional, certainly, but it wasn't home. Nothing felt like home anymore. I keep wondering if there was another way, he confessed, his voice barely audible. If I could have handled this differently. You could have, Nora confirmed. Confronted them, try to work things out, maybe even saved your marriage. And they would have kept lying, kept stealing, kept planning to destroy me. Aaron finished, the bitter truth evident in his voice. Probably, Nora conceded. Look, Aaron, what you did wasn't pretty, but it was incredibly effective. And it was completely legal. Sometimes, unfortunately, that's the absolute best you can hope for. After Nora hung up, Aaron remained seated in his kitchen, attempting to discern what precisely to do with the remainder of his fractured life. He was 40 years old, divorced for the second time, and now wealthy enough to never work again if he so chose. But he didn't know what he wanted anymore. The man who had trusted blindly was irrevocably gone. The man who had naively believed in happy endings was, in a very real sense, dead. In his place was someone harder, colder, more calculating. Someone who now understood, with chilling clarity, that the world was teeming with predators, and the only viable way to survive was to evolve into a better, more formidable predator than everyone else. His phone rang. An unknown number. "Mr. Vance, this is Detective Eleanor Hayes with the Capital City Police Department. I obtained your number from a private investigator named Nora Jensen." "What can I do for you, Detective?" Aaron asked, his voice calm, controlled. "We have a situation here. A man named Marcus Blackwood. His wife disappeared 3 weeks ago along with his business partner and about $500,000 from her joint accounts." Aaron sat up straighter, a spark of something new igniting within him. "I'm listening." "Miss Jensen said you might be able to help us understand how this kind of thing works," Detective Hayes continued. "The financial fraud, the meticulous planning, the psychological manipulation." "She said that, did she?" "She also said you might be interested in helping Mr. Blackwood recover his money," Detective Hayes added, her voice dropping slightly, unofficially, of course. Aaron smiled. It was the first genuine smile he had felt in months, a slow, predatory curve of his lips. "Detective Hayes, I think I'd very much like to meet Mr. Blackwood. Can you be here tomorrow?" "I'll be there tonight." After he hung up, Aaron packed a small bag and methodically loaded his essential tools into his truck. He was heading to Capital City to meet a man whose life had been utterly destroyed by individuals he had blindly trusted. A man who desperately needed help in securing justice. Or perhaps revenge. Sometimes, Aaron had learned, they were one and the same. As he drove through the serene California hills toward his new, self-appointed mission, Aaron felt a strange, profound sensation he hadn't experienced since the devastating day he had discovered those damning photographs in his mailbox. Purpose. He had learned how to hunt. Now, it was time to teach others. Marcus Blackwood was waiting in the parking lot of a truck stop just outside Capital City when Aaron arrived. He was a large man, perhaps 55, with the kind of weathered, calloused hands that spoke of decades of demanding physical labor. He looked precisely as Aaron himself had felt 3 months prior, utterly lost, simmering with an inarticulate rage, and desperate for concrete answers. "You're the guy Nora told me about?" Blackwood asked, his voice rough with exhaustion. "I'm the guy," Aaron confirmed. They sat in Blackwood's truck and conversed for 2 long, intense hours. The story, Aaron found, was depressingly, sickeningly familiar. A faithless wife, a treacherous business partner, a meticulously orchestrated plan to brazenly steal everything Blackwood had painstakingly worked for. "They cleaned out our accounts last Tuesday," Blackwood recounted, his voice thick with pain. "Business account, personal savings, even my daughter's college fund. They took the RV, the boat, everything that wasn't literally nailed down." "Where are they now?" Aaron asked. "Mexico, probably. Or maybe Europe. My wife always talked about wanting to see Paris." Aaron studied Blackwood's face. The man was profoundly hurt, yes, but he was not utterly broken. There was a resilient steel visible beneath the raw pain, a quiet determination. "What do you want, Marcus?" "I want my money back," Blackwood stated, his eyes hardening. "I want them to pay for what they did, even if it means becoming someone you don't recognize." Blackwood considered the implication for a long, agonizing moment. "My wife used to say I was too nice, too trusting," he finally said, a grim set to his jaw. "Maybe it's time I learned to be something else." Aaron smiled, a cold, calculating expression. Then let's get to work. Over the next month, Aaron meticulously taught Marcus Blackwood everything Nora had imparted to him. How to gather undeniable evidence. How to meticulously track complex financial transactions. How to construct an unassailable case that would stand up rigorously in a court of law. More importantly, he taught him how to think like a predator. The key is always patience, Aaron explained, his voice low, instructional, as they sat in a discreet surveillance van outside the opulent resort where Blackwood's wife was openly staying with her lover. You let them truly believe they've won. You let them get comfortable, utterly complacent. Then, and only then, you strike with devastating precision when they least expect it. How do you know when it's time? Blackwood asked, his knuckles white as he gripped the steering wheel. You'll know, Aaron promised, his voice confident. Trust me. They struck on a Thursday morning. Blackwood's wife and her partner had been living a lavish, unapologetic life of luxury in Baja Sol Resort for 3 weeks, wantonly spending his money on exorbitantly expensive hotels and designer clothes. They mistakenly believed they were safe, utterly untouchable. They were gravely mistaken. The Mexican authorities, acting on Aaron's carefully cultivated intelligence, arrested them at the airport as they attempted to board a flight to Spain. Extradition papers had been filed. Every one of their illicit bank accounts had been swiftly frozen, and every single asset they had stolen had been meticulously traced and thoroughly documented. Blackwood recovered his money, every single penny of it, plus significant interest and penalties. His wife received 5 years in federal prison. Her partner received 7. How does it feel, Marcus? Aaron asked as they watched the news coverage of the arrests, the smug faces of the criminals being led away in handcuffs. Blackwood smiled. It was a cold smile, remarkably similar to the one Aaron had been wearing lately. It feels like justice, Blackwood said, his voice quiet but firm. Maybe not the kind they teach you about in Sunday school, but justice all the same. 6 months later, Aaron's phone rang again. Another desperate husband, another stolen fortune, another chance to teach someone how to fight back. Then another and another. Word was spreading quietly, meticulously, through interconnected networks of private investigators, divorce lawyers, and, most importantly, through the ranks of men who had been utterly destroyed by individuals they had once trusted, only to rebuild themselves into something stronger. Aaron Vance was becoming known as the guy you called when the conventional system couldn't help you, when the police dismissed it as a mere civil matter, and the lawyers claimed it would take agonizing years to achieve even a semblance of justice. Aaron was the man who taught you how to secure justice yourself. He never advertised his unique services. He never asked for any payment. He simply materialized when someone desperately needed him, imparted the crucial knowledge they required, and then quietly receded back into the shadows from which he came. Some people, in hushed tones, called him a vigilante. Others, with a nervous tremor in their voices, labeled him a criminal. Aaron didn't care what they called him. He knew precisely what he was, a man who had learned, through bitter experience, that sometimes the only way to effectively stop a predator was to become a better, more formidable predator yourself. And he was, indeed, very, very good at it. 2 years after his own divorce was finalized, Aaron sat in his truck outside a quiet suburban house in Sunstone City, patiently watching a man named Daniel Sterling discover, with dawning horror, that his wife had been systematically stealing from their joint business account. Sterling was 42, a contractor, much like Aaron had once been, with calloused hands and a seemingly honest, open face. He had painstakingly built a successful business from nothing, tirelessly working 16-hour days and sacrificing virtually everything for his family. Now, His wife was meticulously planning to take it all and abscond with her personal trainer. Aaron's phone buzzed. A text from Nora. New case in Rocky Mountain City. Investment advisor embezzled $2 million from a family trust. Interested, Aaron typed back, his fingers moving with practiced ease. Can't. Busy in Sunstone City. Send the details to Blackwood. Marcus Blackwood had become Aaron's trusted first lieutenant, learning to hunt with the same cold, calculated efficiency that Aaron had so painstakingly mastered. There were others now, too. A steadily growing network of men who had been betrayed, utterly destroyed, and then meticulously rebuilt into something harder, more resilient. They called themselves, informally, the Brotherhood of the Burned. It wasn't official, simply a name that had instinctively stuck. They possessed no headquarters, no formal structure, no membership dues. They simply helped each other hunt. Daniel Sterling was about to become the newest, unwitting member. Aaron got out of his truck and walked purposefully towards Sterling's front door. Through the window, he could discern the man sitting at his kitchen table, staring blankly at a stack of bank statements with precisely the same expression Aaron himself had worn when he had first discovered the devastating truth about Clara. Aaron knocked softly. Sterling opened the door, his face drawn, hollow, and utterly bewildered. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice strained. "Mr. Sterling, my name is Aaron Vance," Aaron said, a slight, knowing smile playing on his lips. "I think we need to talk." "About what?" Aaron's smile widened, a grim, predatory curve. It was the smile of a man who had learned, through the crucible of profound betrayal, that the world was, in its essence, a jungle teeming with wolves, and the only true way to survive was to possess teeth that were undeniably sharper. "About how to make them pay."